Okay. If you knew you were going to die in 6 months, what would you do?
I would go home and I would spend my time with my son in my RV, running around the country.
Do you believe in the afterlife?
Of course I believe in the afterlife.
What's the afterlife like to you?
What is the afterlife like to me?
Yes.
It's a place of eternal bliss, of happiness, joy, peace, where memories of bad times are forgotten and where people live and bask in the glory of God. And at that point, we will have an eternal conscience. And the wicked will not be able to penetrate, and they will not be able to harm us. The struggle, the fight of this life will be over with.
What makes you happy, or what was a happy time in your life?
The day my son was born, that was pretty happy. Probably my born-again experience was happiness and joy, peace, tranquility. Those are probably the two most happy times of my life. Maybe also the time that I got my first bicycle would be another happy time. I still remember that event.
How long ago was your first born-again experience? Or your born-again
That was in 1972. And so that was probably about 40 years ago. Between 35 and 40 years ago.
And what led you to that experience?
I had a very deep and profound desire to see peace in Vietnam. That's where I was at the time. And I just was led to God by events around me.
Was there a friend or a family member that was...
No, I was alone. I was by myself. I was within a military unit. I had men around me, people around me. And but my whole general experience with the conflict in Vietnam led me to Christ.
And did you have that experience in Vietnam, or did you...
In Vietnam, before I came back to the States, went back to the States.
Was there a particular reverend or pastor that was...
No, there was nobody there. Just people around me. I was in an integrated military unit, and just people around me, that were Christians, fellow Christians. And they consoled me, or consoled me. I think consoled would be the right word, through the process and through the experience. For me, it was quite dramatic because I really wasn't fully conscious of what was happening to me.
Why is that?
Because I had lived a life of sin. I was a sinner. I was a young man, 22 years old, and basically lived a life of sin, not really understanding that I was living a life of sin, because I think all along, if you believe in the process of predestination, my heart was always in the right place. And so when it came for my time to be, baptized in the Holy Spirit, it came as somewhat of a revelation and as a shock to me. It happened, it was very dramatic, and it really changed my course while I was in Vietnam. I really changed course.
How so?
How so enough to where I just decided I wanted to go home, and I went home. I didn't want to stay in Vietnam any longer. I just decided that it was time to go. And so I left.
Did you continue on your spiritual
Oh yeah.
journey, or?
Oh yeah, I have ever since. It's all been a spiritual journey ever since. However, the aging process has worn it down somewhat and has matured me and made me more wiser. I know when I got back from Vietnam and back from that experience, I retreated into the wilderness of Alaska and lived in a cabin for about 3 or 4 years, and all I did was study the Bible. I tried to reorganize my thoughts and my life and tried to find an explanation for what had happened to me. And the only explanation was found within the scriptures of the Holy Bible. I couldn't find it anywhere else.
Did you work, or did you just hunt? Or?
I lived off the land, but I worked. I did some work. I worked sawmills, and I worked for the state of Alaska. And, the lifestyle in Alaska is, for most people, is semi-subsistence. So, and seasonal work and seasonal jobs, and that's what I did for a great many years after Vietnam. I finally, when I was about 40 years old, I decided I had enough of that lifestyle and went back to college and got my education and went abroad to work. It's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go and see the world. And in order to do that, I needed a degree, and that's what I did. I got my degree, and I left the country and went teaching abroad. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Fulfilling a dream.
What was the experience that you were trying to understand in Vietnam?
It was just the born again experience. It was not only the spiritual reorientation of my life. It also had to do with the gift of prophecy coming to me. The concept, the idea of having foreknowledge of future events. This dramatically changed my life. In 1972, shortly after being born again, I was talking and I was prophesying about the collapse and fall of Saigon. Everybody thought I was nuts. Everybody knows what happened in 1975. Saigon was gone.
And you had a
But in
vision.
1972, they gave me a hard time about it. See?
You had a vision about this.
I had a vision about it. Okay? And it didn't come from the Bible at first. It just came from the Holy Spirit, because that's basically all I had. I didn't have a lot of scriptural material with me in Vietnam.
Why do you think you had that experience, the vision?
Well, I believe that
Was it a sign?
No, I just believe in predestination. I believe that people are predestined in this life, even before they're born, for failure or success, as far as salvation is concerned. And it was something that I walked into not having knowledge that I was perhaps chosen for that purpose. But then after going through the experience, it brought a new awareness to my life, and a new understanding of purpose and knowledge about oneself. And before I didn't have that. I struggled, and I wandered in the wilderness with it. I was in Vietnam and trying to find a purpose for that, and a reason for the war, and a way out. And there were all kinds of things that I was concerned with that, other than having the help from God, I had no control over. I didn't have control over the events of my life. The U.S. military did. And it was just a very... when I finally came to the realization that I did have some rapport, and then I did have some power over my destiny, I took it. I took it by the horns, and I did what was necessary to secure my spot, secure my place, before God, before men, and even at the sacrifice of everything, is willing to do it.
What was the worst thing that happened in Vietnam to you?
The worst thing?
To you, yeah.
Probably having the sense of betrayal, having the sense that I had been betrayed, by the military. I think that was, the greatest, because
by your country?
I can't say by my country, I say by the military.
Okay.
Because at the end of the war, there was a mutiny. There was a mutiny. And I got caught up in it. And I don't hold malice toward the military, and I don't hold malice toward my country for what happened, because I understand the spiritual ramifications. I understood my spot, and I understand it better today. But the most dangerous place for anybody that has a lot of foresight is usually with their own people. It's usually with their own kin, their own kind, their own nation. You'll have the most trouble with these people. Even more so than you would perhaps with enemies, to be surrounded by enemies. Your enemies would have more appreciation for you than your own country. To hear your wisdom, to hear your foresight, to know what you know. More than your country. Because this goes back to something that Jesus Christ said. He said that no man is without honor. No prophet, no man of God is without honor, except among his own people, his own nation, his own kin. This is what he said. It's one of the reasons why the prophets, so many prophets have come to Jerusalem and were cast down, discarded by Jewish society, killed, stoned, crucified, even Christ himself, rejected. Goes with the territory. But you've made your choice. Recently, when I went to Afghanistan, I felt that the greatest threat to my personal security, it wasn't the Taliban. I mean, the Taliban was there around me. I understood that. But I also understood, by my experience in Vietnam, that perhaps the U.S. military was also a threat to my personal security. It's one of the reasons why I left. Because it has to do with good and evil. It has to do with the reasons why people betray other people.
But you're very committed to the military.
I'm very committed to the military. But I also understand that I came from a military family. And I believe in the words of Jesus, who said that no man is without honor except outside of his own nation, outside of his own people, outside of his own kin. Because all of these remember you for what you were, not for the way you've become. This is the reason for this. When I went to Afghanistan, it was like being with my own family and sitting down with my own kin. And I understood the dangers of it.
Military people.
Well, not necessarily the military people, but evil within the military. Evil within the family. Okay? As much as it's the Judas syndrome. It's the Judas syndrome. You understand what the Judas syndrome is?
It's like a betrayal.
It's a betrayal. It's a conspiracy to betray.
Then you felt you were among your.
I was among my own people, and I felt that there was a chance that could happen again. And when I went there, I understood the ramifications. Before I went, and when I went there, I made sure it did happen again.
You made sure
it didn't happen again. Even though, in some respects, it kind of happened, but they took very, very good care of me when I was in Afghanistan. They're very, very careful with it. As careful as people can.
So you're comparing the Judas syndrome? You mean is like when?
Well, the Judas syndrome.
No, when there was
to a Christian, to any Christian, the Judas syndrome is a real phenomenon. If you are much more spiritual than the people around you.
Yeah.
The fact that you can be betrayed by someone who resents you for the way that you are, as Judas betrayed Jesus, is a real possibility.
So somebody finds out that you're a Christian and
not just about being a Christian, but just being about whoever you are. Okay? Just about whoever you are. Whatever your relationship is with good, the evil hates it. This is the way it is. And it's everywhere.
So in Vietnam.
But it is more so, though, amongst your own people, your own nation, your own kin. The chances of you being betrayed is probably greater amongst your own people, your own nation, your own kin, than even perhaps amongst your enemies. It's not to say that it can't happen, but it may be greater. It may be greater. You have to remember that Jesus was betrayed by his own people. Judas.
But they found scriptures that prove that he actually told Judas to.
He did that because he knew Judas was going to do it anyway. He was reconciling everything onto himself. He knew that Judas was about to do this anyway. And who did Judas betray Christ to? The Pharisees, the Jews. Okay? He wasn't betrayed that it was the Pharisees who were out to get him. The Pharisees wanted him. They wanted him arrested. But sad event. But these things can happen, to anybody who is committed to Jesus Christ.
So what was the point to?
The point is that history repeats itself.
Right,
Understand?
but
History has a tendency to repeat itself because we wander as pilgrims in this earth in a sea of doubt, of people that don't believe in God, they don't believe in Christ, they don't believe in the Testament, they don't believe in the history. They doubt it. That isn't true. That didn't happen. So history repeats itself. And so when you wander in this sea of doubt in this life, these events, similar events, can happen over and over and over again in a Christian's life. It can happen. So you have to be aware. You have to be conscious of it. And when I'm in a situation, and like in Afghanistan, it was very similar to Vietnam. And the possibilities of being betrayed by my own people, my own military, coming from a military family, was overwhelming. I didn't want to see it happen again. In Vietnam, I had maximum military assistance by Pentagon. Maximum military assistance, whatever
whatever you need.
and then was betrayed by the military. And really badly so. Really badly so. And when I went to Afghanistan, I went because I was asked to go, and I did out of patriotic duty. I was told I was needed over there. But when I went over, I understood what I could be walking into. And I didn't let it happen. So, on the edge, dancing there. But they took real good care of me over there. U.S. military did. But they let it be up to me what I wanted to do. How long I wanted to stay there. That sort of thing. I was put into very secure compounds. As secure as can be there in Kabul.
What would you say to a young man or young woman who is considering going to Afghanistan?
Well, anytime a person plunges into a war situation.
Someone who wanted to, a young man or a young American who wanted to go, what would you say to them, being an experienced?
I would tell them first to really get their relationship with God secure. And I wouldn't go there for the money. I think I would go there for something more altruistic, something higher than that. You'd have to have a higher purpose, like, do you believe in the war? Okay, do you believe in the war? And it's one of the reasons why I didn't stay. It's also one of the reasons why I couldn't refuse, is because they offered me so much money to go. And maybe that is just I did it because maybe that's for out of lack of character. Maybe that is the glitch in my character. Is the fact that they offered me money and I went. But I didn't let money keep me there. I finally came to my senses and I decided to leave. And I did what I could do to help, and then I got out. But I didn't let money keep me there. I was budgeted for 10 months. I didn't let the need for money keep me there. The love of money is the root of all evil. I didn't let that be the premise for my decision for overstaying my time in Afghanistan.
If you had $1 billion, what would you do with your time?
$1 billion? I think I would probably keep all, or I would probably keep about maybe 500,000 of it and give all the rest of it away to family and charity. That's what I think I would do with it. And with my time, I don't think my time, the way I spent my time would change. I'd probably do what I'm planning to do. There'd be no change.
Which is?
Well, I plan to go up into the mountains and into the hills and spend my retirement up close to nature and away from people.
What is something you consider beautiful? Or what's your idea of beauty?
Well, blue skies, rainbows, morning dew, the coolness of the morning, the rise of the sunset, watching nature. These are the things that are beautiful. Seeing people doing good to each other. These things are beautiful and not evil. These things are beautiful and worth living for.
Who is the most important person in your life? Influential person in your life, or was the most influential person in your life?
Well, I'd have to say Jesus Christ, number one. In this world, in the flesh, probably the most influential was probably my father, and probably Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. Jerry Ford I admired a lot.
What's your best memory of your father?
The hind trips, the time spent out in the woods with my dad, time spent fishing. My dad made a